We're going to close tonight by doing a piece by a man who was very renowned in the ragtime era. He wasn't from Kansas City, but he was from just a ways north of Kansas City, St. Joseph, Missouri. The guy's name was Arthur Pryor. In the ragtime days, he was renowned all over the world as a trombonist. He was the soloist with Sousa's band when Sousa's band toured in Germany. German musicians heard Pryor do his trombone solos. They were completely baffled and mystified, so much so that they demanded to see his trombone, which they showed his trombone to these were the top symphony musicians in this German city. And they examined it, they looked in the hole, they looked in everything they could find, examined every little part, because they thought it was a trick trombone. They finally concluded it wasn't. They couldn't figure out what it was. They thought it was some type of black magic or voodoo or something. Which may not be out of the question, because as it turns out, St. Joe is a place where voodoo was first studied. Now in this country we think of it in terms of New Orleans, but actually it was going on all over, and St. Joe was a big place. A lady named Mary Owen began to study it, one of the first people in the United States to seriously study voodoo. There was a local voodoo conjurer named King Alexander. He held the great stone, the great black stone of the voodoos. If you had this stone, you were automatically a conjure man. You automatically had the power. Mary Owen stole it from King Alexander, and she gave it to this guy who was living in England. He was an American who was living in England named Charles Godfrey Leland, who was an interesting character, but we won't get into that. But he ended up with the great stone of the voodoos, and anyway, we've been trying to track this down, and because we could use some of those powers ourselves. But this next piece by Arthur Pryor is called An African Beauty, and as we found out at the time that King Alexander was doing his voodoo in St. Joe, there was a part of town that was actually called Africa in those days, and we don't know whether Arthur Pryor was naming it after the Africa in St. Joe, but we do know that the music suggests that he was definitely listening to some of the black musicians in town. Because as you'll hear, when it gets to the trio, which is the third section, the first time through it plays it like a straight march with little syncopation. And then when it comes back to it, after a little interlude, he really rags it extremely. It's like hardcore ragtime. This is like what you would have heard. It's like punk ragtime. What you would have heard in strange, out-of-the-way dives and voodoo ceremonies and things in St. Joe at the turn of the century. So Arthur Pryor did this in 1899, and it's called An African Beauty.